Hey you guys, today we're talking about the new Guerlain High Perfection Foundation, but more importantly, whether and how it's different from the Guerlain Natural Glow Foundation. So the 6-hour mark is where it kind of starts to get fun. I specifically have not done any research about how these are supposed to be different. And honestly, I like that. I don't like that dramatic line between dewy and ultra matte. Doesn't look as blotchy, I think is the word I'm looking for. I specifically have not done any research about how these are supposed to be different because I didn't want the power of suggestion or their marketing to potentially influence my review. So going into this, all I know is that the High Perfection Foundation comes in a frosted glass bottle, while the Natural Glow is in a clear glass bottle. And the new High Perfection Foundation advertises 24-hour wear with SPF 15, while the Natural Glow advertises 16-hour wear with SPF 20. So I've conducted the wear test the way I do all my others. We're going to be looking at the consistency, coverage, wearability, and price point of this foundation. But it's also a little bit different because I actually have the Natural Glow on one side of my face and the High Perfection on the other side of my face so we can see how they compare. We're also going to be looking at a color comparison. I have both of these in shade 01N, and a lot of times when companies come out with slightly different foundations that they claim are the same shade, they're actually slightly off, so we're gonna take a look at that as well. So going into this, I have already prepped my face with my SPF and my Priming Glow Moisturizer. I also have on some concealer and my eyebrows are filled in. Those products will be linked for you down below. So we're going to be going in first with the Natural Glow Foundation. So this was sort of their original one they've already had out for a few years now. And I'm going to shake this up and put some on the back of my hand so we can get a look right away at the consistency of this one. As expected, I'm very familiar with this foundation. It is a thicker, creamy foundation. Not really thick like a clay-based foundation, but you can see there it's not running down the back of my hand at all. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and put the High Perfection Foundation on my hand at the same time right next to it. So right off the bat, we're going to be able to see a comparison in their consistency. The High Perfection Foundation is a much more fluid consistency. You can see it's actually dripping down the back of my hand there, and you can also kind of see that color comparison I started talking about. The High Perfection Foundation looks a little bit lighter than the Natural Glow, but you'll see once they're on my face, there actually isn't that big of a difference. So I'm applying the Natural Glow Foundation first on the right side of my face. This is what you would expect from a medium to full coverage cream foundation. You can see it's taking a little bit more effort to blend it out nice and evenly and get the level of coverage that I want. But you can also see it does have a very nice natural finish, kind of skin-like, kind of glowy. So getting a look at the coverage there too compared to the left side of my face, just a medium coverage foundation, you could build that up to something more full if you wanted. So I was apprehensive going in with the High Perfection Foundation on the left side of my face, because as you know, my feelings on fluidy foundations, I really thought that it was going to be difficult to blend out, difficult to get the desired level of coverage, and kind of cling to all those dry spots and the areas of the face that you really want to cover and not draw attention to. I had no issues with that there. It blended out really beautifully and more easily than the Natural Glow finish. You can kind of see there even, I feel like the coverage is a little bit more even than the Natural Glow. Maybe not quite as glowy, maybe a little bit more of like a velvety matte finish, but nothing super noticeable right off the bat. Looking up close and personal here at the most damning parts of the face where I have the largest pores and the fine lines around my mouth, that is just kind of your takeaway for our first timestamp at 10 a.m. I also wanted to just have a little bit more makeup on my face, so I popped on eye makeup and lipstick, but I have no other face makeup on here because I really wanted this wear test to be just about the foundation. I am going to go in and set it with my Chaté London, I think it's called their Extraordinary Translucent Loose Setting Powder. So focusing that on my T-zone and just kind of an overall powder set before we get into our next timestamp. So here's your final look at the 10 a.m. finish with the powder on. Really not that dramatic of a difference, but just in case you were curious if the powder changed the finish at all, this is what we are starting out with for the day. So coming back for the 3-hour mark. The 3-hour mark, checking the High Perfection here on the left side of my face first. Really not that big of a difference. I don't tend to notice huge differences in wearability at the 3-hour mark, but what I'm gesturing to here is again those most telling parts of my face where I have the most movement and I have the largest pores. At this point, one thing that I slightly maybe started to notice was that the Natural Glow foundation was settling into those fine lines and pores a little bit more than the High Perfection foundation. The 3-hour mark is also where I will typically go in with an oil blot sheet. What I tried to do here is use 1/2 of the sheet on the High Perfection side of my face and then the other half on the Natural Glow side of my face, so that way you could see if one had better oil control than the other potentially. And what you will see here is really not much of a difference, but overall what I was surprised by is how little oil actually came off of my face at the 3-hour mark. If you've seen my other reviews, you probably know I have oily skin and that oftentimes by the 3-hour mark I am getting more oil production than this. So I finished out with the T-zone. There's your full oil blot. And we are coming back now 3 hours later at 4 o'clock. So the 6-hour mark is where it kind of starts to get fun. I've definitely got more oil production here. You can see kind of some shininess, especially going on in my T-zone. And we're gonna get up close and personal with the foundation here. This is where you definitely start to see some change. So I feel like on the Natural Glow side of my face here, I'm starting to lose a little bit of coverage there around my lip, you can kind of see. And that difference of how the Natural Glow is settling versus the High Perfection. The High Perfection is really starting to pull away for me here. It settled a little bit too, but just looking at the overall coverage on that side of my face versus the other side of my face, the High Perfection foundation was outperforming the Natural Glow finish at this point. I also went in with another oil blot because I felt like I was definitely shinier at the 6-hour mark than I typically am after I've already done one oil blot. So I did that again at the 6-hour mark as well. Now we are back and it is 7 o'clock, so it has been 9 hours of wear with this foundation. And at this point I have that I can touch my face and feel the oiliness thing going on. I really feel like the foundation has kind of moved around, shifted. I've lost some of that nice, perfectly even coverage on the Natural Glow side of my face. And compared to the High Perfection side, which doesn't look as blotchy, I think is the word I'm looking for. After 9 hours, the High Perfection has definitely started to settle in my face a little bit in those pores, but compared one side to the other, just that overall coverage, I feel like the High Perfection side looks a lot more even, whereas the side with the Natural Glow, as I said, kind of blotchy. The foundation has shifted and maybe moved around a little bit, and I wasn't as impressed with how it held up. So I didn't do another check-in after this because I felt like it had pretty much made itself clear at this point. And regardless of the fact that the Natural Glow advertises itself as 16-hour wear and the High Perfection says it's 24 hours, after 9 hours, the High Perfection was definitely starting to deteriorate, and I really felt like the Natural Glow had lost its oomph altogether. So overall opinion actually surprised me. I definitely liked the High Perfection foundation more than I thought that I would, given that I am generally drawn to the sort of creamy, glowy finish foundations. Despite its more fluidy consistency, it blended out beautifully and evenly, and then it held up that way. It really stayed beautifully even throughout the day. It didn't settle as much as the Natural Glow finish foundation settled, and overall just maintained a better, more seamless, even coverage throughout the day than the Natural Glow finish did. Having seen these side by side, still without having done any extra research, what I think they tried to do here was take a sort of glowy finish foundation up against what I wouldn't call a matte finish foundation, but sort of like that in between, which I generally will refer to as a velvety finish foundation. So for instance, a couple years ago, Dior did something similar with their Forever Skin foundation, and they had a glowy finish and a matte finish foundation. I feel like this one is more like a glowy finish, and the velvety finish actually puts me in mind of the By Terry Cover Expert, I think is what it's called. I did a review video on that one with a wear test. That one has the same sort of velvety skin-like finish that I think this one has. And honestly, I like that. I don't like that dramatic line between dewy and ultra matte. Ultra matte finishes generally don't work well with my skin. I feel like they tend to give me that cake face a little bit more. So this is actually a really nice compromise for people who don't love the glowy, but also don't love this super matte. So we've talked about its consistency. We noted that it is a medium to full coverage foundation. We noted that it wore really well for at least 9 hours. As mentioned, the By Terry Cover Expert foundation is probably similar to this and actually does also fall in that same $60 price range. Between the two of them, I actually prefer this one. This one I think is a little bit more fluidy, and I just really liked how this blended out so effortlessly onto my skin. So that's going to conclude the wear test for the new Guerlain High Perfection Foundation. I hope you found this helpful and enjoyed. Thank you so much for your viewership as always, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.